This is Elected, a podcast for women in and around politics. I'm your host, Sarah Elder-Chamanara, and this week my guest is Sarah Kalnay-Watson. In the spirit of reconciliation, I'd like to acknowledge that I live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their home in Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. So this week on Elected, I have a very special guest. I put out a call on Madam Premier's Instagram saying, I want to talk with a constituency assistant specifically because I believe you are the unsung heroes of our political system. And Sarah messaged me, and she is absolutely the perfect person to talk to about this episode because of her, just you'll find out why. So Sarah was born in Ottawa, grew up in Yellowknife, graduated from Carleton, briefly did a stint in Scotland where she met her husband, who she brought back to Yellowknife, worked in communications and film, and now she is currently the constituency assistant for not one, but two female MLAs in Yellowknife. And they are...
one's male.
Oh, sorry. Oh, one's met. Oh, is it Rylund?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Rylund.
So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was very excited about that. So the first one is Rylund Johnson, MLA for Yellowknife North. And then the second one is Caroline Wawzonek, the minister responsible for the status of women and, by the way, the first female finance minister in the Northwest Territories. And she's also the minister responsible for industry, tourism, and investment. What am I missing? I feel like she has another responsibility.
She does actually. She's the minister responsible for the Business Development and Investment Corporation.
Oh, there we go. That's an even better title.
Got a long list.
Yes. And she's the MLA for Yellowknife South.
Correct.
So Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. So you have two MLAs that you work with. Why don't you tell me about how you got your start in politics and how you became a constituency assistant?
Sure. So I grew up in a pretty politically active household. My parents both worked for politicians or worked on their campaigns, were actively involved in marches. My first one I did my first march, I was like about 3 months old. It was about my mom going up against no nukes. I got in trouble in kindergarten for handing out some pretty raunchy government protest stickers because he wanted trade stickers. So my parents got a phone call saying maybe she shouldn't be sending these to school.
So you said they're raunchy. What did they say?
They literally were calling. So at the time, my parents weren't necessarily agreeing with some of the stuff that the government was doing, and it was basically a picture of a bull pooping with a no symbol on it.
Okay. And how old were you? 5. Okay. So I mean,
they were fun pictures, and they were really big stickers, and so the bigger the sticker, the better for trading, right?
Of course, size matters. And oh my gosh, that's so an amazing story.
My parents got a phone call, and then we moved up to Yellowknife once my dad finished university, and my parents were still pretty active. My dad had to be more behind the scenes because of his role within the government of the Northwest Territories. But my mom worked for nonprofits and worked a lot as a campaign manager for a few MLAs that ran here in the Northwest Territories. And so once I came back from Scotland and moved back to Yellowknife, deciding to have my family, so I left the film industry, I was like, oh, what do I want to do? So I helped a few people with their communications on their campaign trails, trying to get them more into the digital world by showing them you need to have videos and put them online. So I did that. And then my mom was looking at wrapping up her career as a campaign manager, but thought it would be great to train me as a potential campaign manager. And we were both helping this one woman, Jen Fullerton, running for Frame Lake one year. Or one of them, and Jan's official agent, Caroline Wawzonek, her and I had lots of chats, and I was like, why aren't you running for office?
Mhm.
Like, you should really consider running for office. And so 3 years after working on Jan's campaign, Caroline messaged me and she was like, so I'm going to run for office. Do you want to help work on my campaign? And I was like, of course I want to help work on your campaign. However, at this time I'm now self-employed, running my own business, working in wedding and event design and florals. And I said, so I'll do what I can, but I have a little kid. I am running my own business, but I'll do what I can for you. And she was like, no problem, no problem. Being her mom herself. And it got, so I was helping with her campaign. We get all excited because she gets elected to the assembly, and then she's trying to figure out who to bring in as her constituency assistant. Because normally after an election, all the constituency assistants are like, please hire me if they're, because we had a whole bunch of new people in the legislature. There weren't a lot of incumbents that were reelected. And there's a lot of people, she's like, I just don't know who to pick. Like, she said, it'd be so much easier if I could just have you as my constituency assistant, but you run your own business, so that's totally not going to happen. And then I just off the cuff said, well, why? How much would you pay me if I became your constituency assistant? She caught me like literally at the right point when you're so tired from being self-employed that 1 week you're just like, oh, I just need something different to do, because you're just so tired all the time.
A regular paycheck.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Not having to worry about clients coming in and stuff. And she was like, are you serious? And I was like, well, how much? Like, well, come up with an idea of what you think you would like and what it would take for you to leave your shop, and then message me. And I was like, okay. And so I messaged my husband. I'm like, I think Caroline just offered me to be her constituency assistant. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah. He's like, what do you think? He's like, do you want to do it? And I was like, well, I would love to do it, but I'm like, I have to come up with an idea of how much I want to pay. So we negotiated about, I was like, well, how much would it look, how much do I need to close my shop? Like, what is a smart idea? Because I was earning a paycheck. I had lots of weddings and events and regular clients that were at my shop. And so I gave her my number and the idea that I could work 3/4 time, because in that way I could still run my event, like do the weddings on the side. So I balanced that in, how much I was going to make for weddings and then how much I could make as a constituency assistant. And she said yes. So next thing I know, I'm putting up an announcement on my webpage saying, well, I'm going to close the shop to follow my other love, which is politics. And I said, and I was really excited because I will be joining Carolyn Wawzonek on her team with the first legislature in the Northwest Territories that is 50% women, because we had elected 50% women at this time. And so I was super excited to be a part of that group of people. And some people were upset by it because they love my work, but they all understood me going into the politics. So we started working in her office. She got elected as minister, and life changed once you become the constituency assistant of a minister, because being the constituency assistant for a minister is quite different than being a constituency assistant for a regular member.
So for those people who don't understand, why don't you briefly describe what it is to be then a minister or a constituency assistant for an MLA who does not hold a cabinet position versus a constituency assistant for someone who does hold a cabinet position?
Sure. So a regular MLA, so in the Northwest Territories, we don't run in party politics. We run in what's called consensus style government. So we don't have a leading party in the House. We have the government side, which is our cabinet ministers and our premier, and then we have the regular MLA side. So they actually outnumber the government. So that way it allows for more talks and more conversations and to have more of an equal parity of conversation for government decisions. So anybody who's in cabinet can't be outspoken or critical of what the government is doing on any of the subjects, simply because they represent the government.
Right.
So a regular MLA can be out in public, can make statements in the House that can be critical of something that's going on with the government and that they feel needs to be fixed.
Well, and so that's even heightened under a consensus style government, because again, there are no parties. So you have no allegiance to a leader or to a caucus because you are independent.
Right. Every single person is independent. So the 11 regular members, they get to come up and vocalize, and people get to see and hear the individual voices from each riding. So MLAs have a bit more freedom as to how they can criticize or praise the government.
And I'm finding I'm kind of like laughing out loud at this because it's not just a little for southern provinces who don't have consensus, who don't have this style of this operating in the legislature. This is, I'm sure, would be a dream for some MLAs who would just love to be in that position, much to the dismay of their parties and party leaders. So it's just so fascinating.
It has its ups and it has its downs. But the great thing is that each riding you get to hear their voice.
Yeah.
Right. So you're
the good and the bad, not just the raw, I'm on the same team, but also, I'd love it if you would do this differently, or I'm going to be really critical of you on this issue because you deserve to have someone speak out on it.
Exactly. So the working for a regular MLA, I get to be more woohoo, let's write this statement, let's go forward.
Let's be political.
Exactly. We can be open on social media, criticize this or say this is how we should go. And then on the opposite side, a minister, all of their rants or discussions that they have are either held in caucus with all MLAs or held during cabinet meetings. So nothing that they say or criticize or discuss or try to move forward ever gets out into the public. So none of the constituents in the riding will actually necessarily know what their member voted, like what their view was on things, because they can't publicly speak out on it. So that's one of the downsides, is that there's well, which side were you on this one? Because with party, you would basically know, oh, they're all on this side, they're all in favor of these things because they're part of a party.
Right.
Whereas with cabinet ministers and a consensus style, you're like, right? So,
and do you find that constituents approach you and the MLA being like, I actually do want to know what your take is on this, and what do you say back to them?
Yeah, so we get a lot. We do get private messages. So we do get private messages on through our Facebook and Twitter and Instagram messaging, as well through emails. We do get people saying, well, what's your viewpoint on this? And Caroline does have frank conversations with them, and where she can actually speak to things, she does, because she's like, you're right, you do have a right to know. However, when it comes to what discussions happened in actual cabinet meetings, that she'll be like, no, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you.
Yeah, cabinet confidentiality.
Exactly. She's like, but she shares her views and her sentiments and how she feels. But she's very good at following that line as to where she can talk and where she can't talk. I think that has to deal with her lawyer background.
And then contrast that with Rylund.
Oh yeah, Rylund, we'll just go full blown, and it's like, you're right, this is totally wrong, here's how we can fix it. And it's very interesting, because I started off with Caroline as minister. So my first experience as a constituency assistant was being a constituency assistant for a minister. And then when I started working for Rylund in June this past year, I was writing statements that were being said in the House. I'm like, oh my goodness, my words are out there for people to hear. And it's such a contrast in being able to speak to the issues that you want to see changed.
Does it feel good? It feels good, doesn't it?
It really does. Like, my mom had a really good laugh when I told her I was going to become a constituency assistant, because she said that when I was a kid, because my mom worked in a constituency office when I was a little kid down in Ottawa. And she was like, you would always complain about, I'm never getting into politics, I'm not going to do this. And then when I told her I was going to be a constituency assistant, she just laughed. And she was like, oh my goodness, seriously. And it turns out I absolutely love being a constituency assistant. I'd always thought about maybe getting into politics, but now being a constituency assistant, like, nah, I do not want to be the member sitting in the chair, because I see everything that comes in, and I'm like, I don't have the temperament to sit out there and take all that criticism. But from the public, because I read the comments, it's my job to read the comments, and just seeing all that it's kind of hurtful sometimes. But being a constituency assistant, I'm still helping people, and I see the direct involvement in their lives,
Right.
and seeing how I can help change something for someone. And it's absolutely amazing. Like, it's so wonderful.
I agree. And that is why I agree. I think you are the constituency assistants. You like, it's a job that gets the least amount, or yeah, I'm just the least amount of respect in the kind of the hierarchy of positions within, you know, the legislature system. And I think that, and I, you know, people who work in a legislature can kind of think, oh, you know, like constituency assistants aren't, you know, they're not here, they're not doing this work. My work is more important. I'm obviously, you know, the conduit that feeds them and keeps them going. And it's like, actually, no, constituency assistants, you are frontline. You are like, without you, things would cease to operate. Well, no, it's true because you get elected at a local level. Mm-hmm. And without knowing if you'll be in cabinet or not, but you get elected at a local level. So that local level, the retail level of politics, interacting with people who may or may not vote for you, depending on, you know, how effective you are as an MLA, is really important. And you are the face of their constituency work. And that's like, it's invaluable to have someone who you can trust and who does a good job.
Yeah, it is one of those jobs that it's like, it is literally 24 hours, 7 days a week. If you're one of those constituency assistants that's just like, I'm doing it whenever I'm doing it. And that's kind of how I am with the position. I even remember someone messaging us on Facebook the other day, just their concerns over, because we were talking about bringing in like mandatory vaccinations for government workers and stuff. And they had messaged to bring their voice to the conversation. And it was a private message, and it was about 10 o'clock at night, maybe. And I responded back saying, did you want me to bring this forward to Caroline as the Minister of Finance, responsible, since it's talking about GMT workers, or do you want me just to bring it forward as a note for her as an MLA? And she's like, no, I would like it as a minister. But she's like, but Sarah, seriously, what are you doing working at this time of night? And I was like, when the work comes is when I work. Like, when you're working with constituents, it can happen at any time of the day. It's not a 9 to 5 job.
Do you think that's been heightened because of COVID?
Oh my goodness. I would think definitely. Like, when COVID first hit, I was happy that I had a constituency assistant job, because my business went, because of weddings, you know, it's kind of crowds, doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
But so couldn't have been better timing. But we, like, constituency assistants, members, we were all flat out running because it was nonstop messaging. So when it first happened, it was like we were working 12, 16 hours a day because people were just messaging, asking questions, what's happening. And I think with COVID, a lot of it has a lot of people have noticed that they can write to us at any point and we'll answer, because you need to calm them, right? Mm-hmm. And it's, we appreciate they don't phone the phone number outside of work hours.
I hope you don't answer the phone at 10 o'clock at night.
I would.
Okay. Maybe this is a separate podcast on work-life balance.
But I actually find that with the job with the constituencies, there is a great work-life balance, because if I am finding myself working at 11 o'clock at night, I take an extra hour with my kid the next day. So it's, and my MLA also happens to be a mom who has 2 kids that her husband is also a shift worker up at a mine. So she's got the understanding of too. Exactly. And we've actually, and a lot of people that appreciate some of the posts that we put forward on her page, is she had to chair the financial management board meeting, and her kid couldn't go to school one day. And she was like, I literally have my kid in my office under my desk who's playing while I'm chairing this financial management board meeting. She's like, sorry, my kid's here. You're going to just have to live with it. Yeah. So it's bringing that balance. And so she completely understands. And I think it's absolutely great that people understand about the balance of having kids and
Well, isn't
working
that,
and
well, because half of the population, well, I mean, not every family, not every woman has children, but for those who do, especially in COVID, it has, become abundantly clear that managing both having a job and having children is really, really hard.
it is
And so it's
a lot of
refreshing,
work.
I think, well, because we need to talk about these things. Like it's
Mhm.
amazing that she said, like, this is the situation. And because I don't think enough people understand, like, that these are the circumstances and they're hard no matter if you're elected or unelected. It just so
Yeah,
happens that that person is on camera, right?
yeah,
And you can't, this is why we need more women in politics to
yeah.
make
And
these
like,
things more okay.
exactly. And the Northwest Territories has been working really hard at getting parity in the legislature. And we got our parity of 50%. And then we also just had a couple months ago a by-election in one of the ridings, which elected another woman, which actually makes us majority female. So we're actually the very first Canadian Parliament legislature to ever have majority female sitting in the House, which is absolutely, I was mind blown. I was like so happy, and like there were so many messages across the constituency assistants and MLAs about, oh my goodness, we have majority female for the first time ever in history. And it was a great moment. But I think one of the things that allowed that to happen is that the Northwest Territories legislature, part of the budget that they put out for MLAs is to allow for coverage of childcare in those emergency situations when that aren't outside your normal school hours or the daycare that you would normally have to pay anyways. So because MLAs have to sit late into the night during some sessions, or
Mhm.
committee meetings are on weekends or on the evenings or early in the mornings, and you don't have childcare, so you have to pay extra childcare outside those hours, the legislature has budgeted to allow for parents to have that childcare.
I don't know if that, first of all, thank you for sharing that because I hadn't heard that before. And I don't know if that exists. I don't think that exists anywhere else. Does it?
It should.
Well,
I
yes,
don't
it
know if it does.
should.
It just got introduced with I think the 18th legislature voted and passed on it to allow it to happen, which
Wow.
allowed for, and the Northwest Territories in the status of women have been hosting workshops to try and encourage more women to get into office. And we've been seeing it happening. We've been seeing more women running. And now that we have this childcare option, it's really helped, I think. Because I know
That's
there's a few
totally
MLAs
a
that,
model
yeah,
then for other provinces and territories to follow. I am definitely
yeah,
going to be looking into that.
yeah. And it's working for the dads too, because we have
Yeah, it's all
some dads that bring
parents.
in their kids. So it's great. Because I found that a lot of people that want to get involved in politics, the barrier is the childcare.
Well, and just like Caroline Wawzonek, imagine if it was, a dad who was a politician with the mom who did the shift work at site, then he would be in the
Yeah,
same boat. So it would
exactly.
be beneficial to all. It's amazing what
Yeah.
happens when you start making policies that support families and how you can potentially see, like in the Northwest Territories, then an increase in women running.
Yeah. And
So
kids running down the halls. Like there was 1 week, because there was a day off, and there was a whole bunch of us that couldn't get daycare or care. So my kid was there. 3 MLAs, their kids were there. There was Caroline's kids were there, and there were just so many kids in the hallways, and people were like, "What is going on?" And the premier just started laughing. She's like, "I love it." She was like, "They're never going to get rid of kids now because they can't say no." She, like, our premier, who is also the only female premier in all of
Caroline
Canada.
Cochrane.
Yeah, she was loving it. She said it's so nice to see kids in the halls. Not to mention the kids seeing politics firsthand
Right.
encourages them possibly to look into it
Yeah.
as a yeah.
That's so interesting. So if you could share, if someone was listening to this and was like, I really hadn't given much thought or, didn't really value the work of a constituency assistant and, but was maybe interested in it, what would your advice to them be on potentially getting into this role?
I would say if they really want to find a way to help make change in the world and in their community, um, constituency assistant is really that job, because you have the conversations with your member constantly about what's going on, and you can talk to them about ideas that you've had or that they have. You become a sounding board for them. You actually get to know the people of your community. So they are writing you, asking you, how do I do this? How can I get help? If you're one of those people who literally wants to help people navigate this system of government, or to help people just basically help them read and go over a document because they don't understand the literacy behind it, then this is a job for you. If you like to talk politics, this is a job for you. It's literally I love it. Like, I didn't know I would love this job so much. I thought it'd be great. I didn't think it would be this great.
Well, I feel like anyone listening to this or watching, like I can feel the love that you have for it. It is very, very, very clear. And I love that you love it so much.
It is. It's a perfect balance between politics and caring for people, because it is the on the ground change that happens. An example was, I had a constituent that messaged us saying that they were a parent in the hospital with their child, but they're there like 24 hours a day with their kid, but they don't get any meals because they're a Yellowknife resident. We have a system where the parents that are from out of town get meals with their kids while they're in hospital, but we didn't have it for Yellowknife parents because it was assumed that, they could just go home to get a meal. But if your kid is sick, you're not leaving their side.
Yeah, you stay with them.
So we pointed this discrepancy out, and the Minister for Health at the time was like, you know what, this is absolutely right. We should be feeding them because they're not going out. Why should we expect anything different from a parent from out of town than a parent from in Yellowknife? And so that policy got changed. And that was just because someone wrote in being mad while they were sitting in the hospital bedroom with their kid on Facebook messaging us and saying this is ridiculous. And we're like, you know what, you're right. And we fixed that.
I love it.
Right?
I
so
love it.
It's the little policy changes that don't get publicized out there because they're so small. Most people are like, oh, who cares, right? But it changed for parents in the hospitals. Yeah. Or it's like the smallest little things can have the biggest effect that nobody knows that's going on behind the scenes. But as an individual who's working in a constituency office, I'm like, I just helped make that happen.
Yeah, you're a superhero in terms of constituency work and, and your role that you play.
Yeah, and I think that's also something that if you are a constituency assistant, that's one thing that people need to understand is you're going to be the unsung hero. You have to be one of those people that understands you're not the individual who's going to be getting the credit for it. Yeah. It's the office, it's going to be the member. And I have absolutely no problem with that because I'm like, I know myself that I have made that. But I also have a great MLA, or MLAs, I should say, that have no problem when they're doing meetings and going, my constituency assistant's amazing. Like, we need to thank her for this and all this work. So I have two wonderful bosses. And that's as long as my boss says thank you and the constituent I'm working with says thank you. Sometimes, even though I'm working with them and they say thank you, Caroline, I'm like, you're welcome, right? Yeah. And I know that I'm happy with what I've done.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that you love this job. I love that you love politics. I love that when you were in the 5th grade, you brought that sticker to class. Like, I can just feel it like in you that your political in this role is like amazing for you. That being said, I know you said that you don't think that you would ever run, but I think you would be incredible at it.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, I have so many ideas, but I think that I left the film industry to have my family because I needed the time. In the film industry, you have so many hours that are taken away from your life, and watching firsthand members of parliament and ministers, how much time they actually give up. I'm like, well, that would just be giving up my other dream job for this one. So it was bound, but I really love, because I still get to see everything that I have ideas for move forward, and or in some cases hit the wall because no matter how many times you say someone, this can really help, the government goes, no, we don't have the budget for that. And then you're just like, oh my God, I'm so frustrated about that. But I do love that. And I would love to encourage more people to run for office, or more people become constituency assistants. So they'll, I don't know about down south. I mean, up here, we don't necessarily have the best pay. Everybody always thinks that we're government workers and that we get the government pay and the government benefits and pensions. We actually don't have pensions. I do know that my two MLAs are fighting to get pensions for constituency assistants.
Mm-hmm.
They only just got benefits, but we're not the same benefits that are the government. But we don't necessarily do our jobs for the pay. We do it because we love the job.
That's true, but that being said, you should still get some of those things. Those are important.
Yeah.
And they would potentially also recruit more people to be constituency assistants if those benefits were in place.
It's true. I did have a conversation recently with someone that was talking literally about the benefits and pay of constituency assistants, that it should be higher because of the amount of expertise that we have to bring to the role. So depending on what you hire your constituency assistant for, some just hire them for communication purposes, some of them just hire them for administrative purposes, depending on what level of involvement you want. But some people, you literally have a political advisor, you have the communication specialist, you have the administrator, you have the office manager, all rolled into one, because in the North, you have one constituency assistant who runs everything. And so people are like, you basically have all these senior level positions put into this one position, and it's not.
You're asking someone to be an expert without giving them expert level pay.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and usually, typically, I'd say that constituency offices here have two, unless there's some kind of rural MLA, like really rural MLA, then they might have multiple constituency offices, and then
our rural ones have multiple.
But they can, I think, the office gets a budget, and then it's up to them how they allocate it, depending on. So, right. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I mean, we've never met before, but I am definitely, you have given me, you make me excited about the political system and about the work that you do. And I think hopefully anyone listening to this also has a greater appreciation for the work that you do and why it's important. So I really just want to thank you for taking the time to do this with me. People won't know this, but it's currently Sunday morning. So we're doing this. You're taking time away from your family, and I really, really, really appreciate you doing it. And you have the best, as I said, you have the best background that I've ever seen. It's mesmerizing. I love it.
You can see them in real life if you come up here.
I was just going to say, do you want to give a shout out for the real Northern Lights?
Yeah, we have some really beautiful aurora borealis and northern lights up here. So my background is reflecting of that. No pun intended. But no, I'm glad that I was able to come on, and I just want to point out that the person who recommended me message you for this, her name is also Sarah. So it was a triple Sarah.
Triple Sarah trifecta.
Triple Sarah, it's a trifecta. And I really would, like, when she mentioned that I should message you, I was like, oh my goodness, yes, because we all have the same goal of getting more women into office. And there is, like, in Caroline's full team at the legislature is all female. So her
Carolyn
Wawzonek.
Oh, Wawzonek, sorry. Now I'm getting the Carolines mixed up.
That's okay. It happens all the time. I get letters and I'm like, was this intended for the premier? And they're like, yes. Because we go by first names a lot in the Northwest Territories in the legislature too. Right?
I like it.
So it's just her whole team is female. So her special advisor, her EA, myself, we're all women. So it's real, and it's really important to her. It's important to Rylund. His constituency assistant, his regular constituency assistant, is identified as female as well, and she's off with her Red Seal certification. She's a woman in trades, so she wanted to go off and help build a house. And he was like, "Find someone." She's like, "Sarah can help," and I was like, "I will totally be down for helping," because Rylund's in the same area of, like, we just want to help and get people out there and get the voice out, and I love it, and I hope people who have a passion to help people directly help them and see the changes and be involved in politics. This is a great career for them to pick.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love your passion. So anyone who's interested, please strongly consider getting involved at the constituency assistant level, because that level of politics is so critically important. It cannot be overstated. It is fundamental to how everything works, the jobs you do. It's amazing. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for bringing the best Zoom background I've ever seen to the table. Thank you for joining me on a Sunday, and I really wish you all of the best. And I hope you, as much as I know you're doing an amazing job and you're answering those emails at 10 o'clock, I just want to say maybe like once in a while, just hit pause.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Sarah. This has been another episode of Elected. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.